Thank you, Allison, for being on. And to get started, maybe you can tell us about who you are and what the company is that you're working for, what it does.
Sure. My name is Allison Barr Allen. I am the co-founder and COO at a company called Fast. We are scaling one-click checkout for the entire internet. So think of putting a buy now button on any website that you interact or work with.
And why is that a good idea? Why address that particular problem?
Yeah, for sure. So most of my tech career has been in payments. I sort of happened upon the area when I was at Uber. I started in an operational role at Uber called driver operations, and I was helping drivers, managing the existing drivers mostly in the Chicago market. So I would do everything from weekly payments to designing incentive programs to managing tons of special events to sort of anything that you can imagine related to drivers. And we had this support center that I would work in a couple days a week. It was basically like a DMV. So it was funny. It's like me behind the counter, like answering all their questions and uploading documents for them. But what I realized through that process and talking to lots and lots of drivers was that payments was the most important part of the whole ecosystem. They were driving for Uber to make money. That was like the main goal. And a lot of these people were living paycheck to paycheck, and they were using it to pay their bills and their rent. And they often did it because it was hard to get other jobs. And at the time, Uber was one of the only places where you could really download an app and use resources that you currently have and earn money right away. So it was a really magical thing. And I really felt like I was making a difference in the community there. But through that process, I realized that payments was incredibly important. And if they didn't understand why they got paid a certain amount, or if they didn't get paid on time, then it was like really stressful and emotional for them. So I ended up moving to San Francisco to work on our driver payments team. And my team was called Product Operations, and we embedded ops people within product teams to really be the voice of the customer and help with large scale product rollouts and product strategy. So one of the main projects I worked on first was something called Instant Pay, where we went from paying drivers once a week to 24/7 on-demand payments. And with the click of a button in the app, any driver could pay themselves on demand after they take a trip. So before, the process was we would send these bank files on Sunday or Monday night, and they would get it on Wednesday. So that was like a really magical experience to be able to press a button and get paid. And I saw like firsthand what that meant to drivers. And it also was beneficial to Uber as a business because people would be more likely to drive if, to say, they could drive for a couple hours and then afford to go to a movie or dinner with their family after because they could get the money right away. So it was this very simple product, but I saw the magic and the value that better payment methods can provide. So Fast is really a very similar concept. It's you press a button and you pay, and merchants can get paid faster as well. But the process currently online is very complicated to check out and pay. This is why the reason you have usernames and passwords is so businesses identify who you are. And a lot of that is so that you can pay more easily. But because of how the internet and identity is currently structured, every single tab on your Chrome browser, you have to replicate yourself over and over and over again. Like one tab isn't able to transfer to the next tab, right? So that makes it like pretty difficult to use the internet. And I think while younger, more tech savvy people have these complicated processes that they've figured out to manage login and passwords and make it easier, I think there's a huge opportunity to make the internet easier to use for all sorts of people. And you sort of saw this firsthand with COVID, and how do you help older people more easily buy things online? So the problem we're tackling is really large scale, but a lot of it is about press a button and make a payment and make it as easy as possible. And with that, people will be more likely to buy things, or maybe buy things that they wouldn't have previously, because right now there's quite a bit of a drop off, especially at the checkout step, especially if you're on your phone and you click an item you like and you're like, I'm not going to create this account just to buy this one little thing.
Yeah, I've experienced that many times. I think your product is really smart, and I I hope to see it everywhere, because it is definitely a frustration that I felt. And so Fast has grown, pun intended, really fast as an organization, and mostly I think during the beginning of the pandemic and then during the pandemic. And And that meant that I think the company started out as like, we're all going to be in San Francisco. How has that evolved?
Yeah, so we have an incredible office in San Francisco that we will keep. It's this like great open warehouse space, and sort of reminded me of my early Uber days. But so we'll keep the office. But last summer we decided that we'll have a remote policy going forward, or a hybrid model. So if people want to come into the office, they can. And we're sort of already seeing lots of people request to come back into the office because myself, even, I have a small apartment in the city with my husband, and if I'm working in the bedroom, he's in the living room, and it's like we can't even be on conference calls without hearing each other. So I think there will be some return to offices in some regard, but I think people like the optionality to be able to work where they want. And we've had people move back to their hometown. We've had people locate to different countries. So I think that flexibility is really important.
Yeah, you call this fast flex, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, now most companies, I think, are moving towards that model. COVID lasted way longer than I think any of us anticipated at the beginning. So I think companies are sort of being forced to do it from a employee satisfaction perspective.
Yeah. What has been the response internally? You said some people moved to other places. Have you seen something else, which is like, and how do you deal with situations where you have someone that is outside of San Francisco that might want to work from the office? Do you help them move, or how do you deal with those kind of situations?
Yeah, so San Francisco is still pretty shut down, where it's like illegal to be in offices still. So we haven't
Okay,
had
yeah.
people that yet like wanted to move to San Francisco. I think the city will bounce back. I think it's been more on the conservative side as far as reopening. So we just haven't seen it yet. But I think the biggest challenge when more people are in the office will be making sure that remote and local people feel the same connection with the company, because at Uber we weren't remote, but we had lots of offices. So you were always on Zoom. It was like a similar thing, but you're just calling from different floors or whatever, because it was impossible to get conference rooms. So I was used to being on Zoom all the time. Like that was sort of my way of working. So that wasn't different to me. I think the challenge comes when you have people that uh, sometimes if most people are at one office and then some people are at another office, they may feel like a bit out of the loop. So I think that will be important in making sure that everyone feels really included, whether they're at the office or not. I think it will help that people won't be in the office 5 days a week. I think we've sort of already seen that people would prefer like even the 3-2 model, or sometimes are coming in for afternoons or different hours. So I think that will help as well.
What is the plan in terms of hiring? Will you say we're going to hire anybody from anywhere, or do you restrict it in particular ways?
Yeah, so we're open to hiring people all over the world. A lot of it's based on experience and sort of meeting our bar for the interview process and pipeline. But we're very excited to be a global company. I think being global is sort of built into my DNA. Sort of again, from being at Uber, we were very, very global. So that's sort of my standard way of working. And it's like, why not go globally as quickly as you can? So we're sort of already thinking through what that strategy is. And Dom, my co-founder, is from Australia. So and we have people in Europe already. Someone works for us in Amsterdam. So we're thinking like very globally. With that, it's like you have to be able to support multiple time zones and have resources all over the world. So part of it is doing business and making sure you can support all these different geos and countries. And then another is like a talent play, where I think again people like the flexibility and being able to. Some people may still want to be in San Francisco, but some people may want to move other places. We've had quite a few people move to Seattle area and other places. So I think they like the option and not feeling like they're stuck in one place.
What is the long-term plan? Like, do you expect to open more offices around the world, or how do you think about dealing with that?
Yeah, still TBD. I think offices will likely come back more than people think. There's sort of some companies are saying, oh, the world will be entirely remote, but I sort of even see it from our own team. Like people are excited to get out of their house and have different options versus just working in one place all the time and sort of change of environment and or for family situations or whatever. So I think there's sort of still a demand for offices. I think if and when we open other offices, it would be dependent on how many people are located there and sort of demand from employees.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see this a lot. I think, one of the things we keep saying is like working remotely during a pandemic is like, it's not the best way of working remotely. It's the worst possible way of working remotely. It's really nice to not be at home and like work outside of home. So
yeah, you can't go to coffee shops. You can't do a lot of the stuff that I think, and a lot of people still, especially in the Bay Area, can't really send their kids to school. So I think it's different than it will be in the future.
yeah, no, yeah, I'm also at home stuck with the kids, so it's definitely a challenge that we're all looking forward to be resolved in some ways.
WeWork's going to be ready to come back.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things I've seen you tweet about and is about representation of women in business and like especially in higher levels of business. Have you seen this change at all during COVID? I mean, we internally have this thesis about to give some context why there might be change, which is if you hire from anywhere, you don't have a natural selection, like you don't have a natural self-selection of a particular type of person, because there's talented people all over the world and you actually have the opportunity to interview hundreds of people. You should be able to build, like, in gender diversity and any other form of diversity, quite a diverse team. Have you seen changes in this? What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, it's evolved. I think in the past, I think I tweeted about this too. In the past like 6 months or a year, I think there's definitely been more of a focus on female-led companies and highlighting women leaders as really aspirational people. I think historically, a lot of times these business people that you look up to or that are sort of evangelized in the press, a lot of them are men.
Yeah.
And it helps to have like much like better representation at the top, because if there's not, then it's people don't think that they can ever sort of achieve that. So I think there have been a lot more sort of big rounds or billion-dollar plus companies led by women. I think it's still in the early stages, and but I think especially in the past year or two, there's sort of been more of a focus on seed stage companies and like VCs actually looking at their portfolio and figuring out the gender diversity, where before it was sort of something they didn't really talk about or think about as much. There's also been quite a bit of emphasis on women at VC funds, which should also help. But some of the results will take a few years, I think, to play out, because if they're seed stage companies, it will take a bit before you see the results of some of this work. But I think the venture industry, compared to like private equity or hedge funds, has been much more active at sort of looking at women at the highest level, because you don't really see this as much on like the hedge fund or PE side. And I think I've looked at the numbers before, like 3% of like all financial assets are managed by women. So the numbers are just like terrible. So I think it's a good start, like what the venture community is doing. And I hope that sort of expands. I think what Kathy Wood has done with like ARC ETFs. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's like a fund manager that has like incredible returns, which especially in that industry, there's just not a lot of women at the most senior level. So I think examples like that where women are totally crushing it and having incredible returns, like really, really helps. From a hiring and leadership perspective, I think a lot of it is about intention and just saying, okay, we need to look at the numbers and we need to do our best to have like fair representation at the top, because it's still true that, especially for more senior roles, like men are often much more aggressive at reaching out cold or working within their networks and looking for new opportunities. So a lot of times you have to be a bit more intentional or reach out to women more proactively, or say, we're going to set a goal to have 50% female managers or whatever the goal is. I think part of it is like even to start tracking it. Like in your hiring pipelines, you can say, okay, these are like the percent of women that we're doing for first phone screens for engineering or whatever, and start by just like looking at the numbers so that you're aware. And then you can sort of set goals about where it goes. But if you just ignore the problem and you're not intentional about it, it's pretty hard to fix.
Yeah. Yeah. Early on at Remote, we opened a position for an engineer, and there was quite a lot of interest. And we looked at the pipeline; it was only men. And we literally just, my co-founder Marcelo, he went on Twitter. He says, "We only have men applying at this position. Please, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like we have a diverse company, you'll be interviewed by other women and other men and all sorts of people, and it made a huge difference. And I think being intentional about it is makes a lot of sense, and being honest about, look, like, there's only men in management position, there's only men applying to these roles. Like it can be different. One thing I think,
engineering is still pretty hard. There's just like fewer women engineers. I think where we're really excited about is more at the junior level and like training people internally, and how can we train more female engineers. But yeah, it's there's still a gap there.
Yeah. I really think we can do better with remote, like with remote work in general, by just saying, well,
Yeah.
there's a much greater pool that we can access now, and we can leverage that. If it wasn't for Fast, what would you be working on? What would you be building?
Oh, I have no idea. I'd probably be in venture. So before I met Dom, my goal was to go into venture capital, and I wanted to invest in fintech companies. I thought that was sort of my calling in life, and I still really love early stage companies and talking and helping founders. But I sort of saw the opportunity here bigger than anything I'd seen, and it was sort of perfectly aligned with my experience and my goals. And there's just like so much potential that we have and what we can build. So it was a bit serendipitous, but I'd probably be doing something within venture capital.
Yeah, because you're also an angel investor. I think you called your fund Trial Run Ventures. Did I get it right?
Yeah, it's just a personal angel investment fund. But when I first started angel investing, I tweeted about it a bit, and then I started getting all these like cold DMs, and I was like, I'm just gonna put up a website so people know what I actually invest in, so it's a bit more streamlined. So yeah, it's sort of a fun side project.
And the name comes from, I think, one of your greatest hobbies, as far as I can see from Twitter, which is running.
Yeah, I love long distance running, and sort of I try to run outside and in nature as much as possible. So actually, because of COVID, my husband and I were able to spend more time in Tahoe, where I have family. So it's been great to be able to go to the mountains and get out of the city.
Any goals in terms of running distances that you want to do, particular runs that you want to complete?
Ugh. I've been trying to do a 3-hour marathon for a long time. I've sort of a bit off. I think my best is 3:14, but maybe
Still
in the
really
next,
fast.
maybe in the next like 3 to 5 years or so. But I've gotten to a point where I don't like racing as much as I just like training. I think running and training is like incredible for mental health and physical health, and it's such a simple thing to run outside, but I get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of it. So
To me, it's like it's 10% physical and 90% just a mental battle to get, especially once you start like running longer distances and you want to get somewhere. To me, it's just fighting my brain the whole run.
yeah, the trick is most people run too fast,
Yeah.
especially if you don't run a lot. So the trick is to slow down. Um, uh, yeah, I noticed in Amsterdam, a lot of people run really slow. Where in America, people are always like sprinting, which is like a funny cultural thing. I spent a lot of time in the Netherlands when I was at Uber, so I thought that was funny.
There's not a lot of hills, so it's easy to run in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Allison, thank you so much for taking the time today. Where can people find you and Fast on the internet?
Sure. We're very active on Twitter, so at Fast, or my handle is at Barr Allen.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.